Welcome to another episode of the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce here again with Zach Hewlett, and today our guest is Jason Hensley. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Where are you calling from today?
Yeah, so currently I'm calling from Portland, Oregon, but I reside in Olympia, Washington.
Okay.
Olympia, beautiful.
Absolutely gorgeous place.
So, Jason, start us off with how you ended up in Scotland. Anything leading up, getting the call, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I had grown up in the church and was very much always knew that I was going to serve a mission. So went through seminary, high school, all that sort of thing, and then decided, well, I'm going to go. So I just put it in my papers, and it came back. And I think as a lot of maybe missionaries do, I read Scotland Edinburgh mission.
That's right.
when I got it, sitting around the family room there with my family, and so then when I read that, and then my father had told me there's somebody he knew that was in our ward that had served in our mission like 40 years prior to myself. Mm-hmm. And so then when I went to church on Sunday and was kind of talking to people about it, he was like, no, it's Edinburgh. It's not Edinburgh, it's Edinburgh. And I was like, okay. So
I think a lot of us had that experience too, being corrected before getting out there.
But yeah, and so then after that, everybody I told to about it was always like, that's going to be a really hard mission. Everybody was saying, you're not really going to baptize too many people. There's not a lot of people that are really going to want to talk to you. But I found the complete opposite from what people were telling me. So
I love that.
Yeah, it was great. I love the people, love the time serving. So that's kind of prior to mission life, how I ended up there.
Good deal. And you served from August 2008 to August 2010. What have you been up to since then?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been almost 15 years since I got back. I went to college. Took me a little bit longer than most people. It took me longer than 4 years, mostly because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't, in high school, I had done a program that's called Running Start. So I essentially graduated high school with a 2-year college degree already.
Nice.
And so at that point, I needed to pick a major, and I wasn't ready to do that. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up
Did you start school like a day after you got home because you got home in August?
I did not, actually, because I got home in August. I knew I wanted to take a little bit of time.
Okay.
And so I actually started school that January.
Smart.
So I waited a couple of months before I finally was going to school. I didn't want to just rush back into it.
Yeah.
So what I did one semester between getting back and leaving for college. I had met a young lady that I ended up marrying. And since then, we've had 2 kids, 2 little boys. And then kind of still trying to figure it out. So I was at school for like another semester or 2. Still didn't know. So I decided to join the military. So I ended up joining the Army for a couple of years. Kind of served in California. It's the language school in California, which was interesting to say the least. Just the way that I know we didn't really learn languages going to Scotland, but I've had friends who learned languages at the MTC. And the Army teaches languages almost the exact same as the mission, where they just kind of throw words at you and hope that you learn them quick.
Cool.
But while I was in the Army, decided I wanted to go into finance. And so when I got out of the Army, went back to school. Because I had went to BYU, I just enrolled back into BYU Idaho online and was able to finish my degree that way. So I ended up graduating finally with my 4-year degree in 2018. And then did an internship. And I've been working in the securities industry these days. So nice. I work as a securities compliance examiner for the state of Washington. So I just help to regulate those people who are selling you investments or selling you investment advice. just making sure they're not trying to rip their clients off or people off. So I go in and travel to their offices and check their books and records and make sure they're not trying to steal people's money.
Very good.
Something I really, really enjoy doing now.
Good for you.
How old are your boys now?
I have one that is 10 and one that is 7.
Nice. Very good.
That's excellent. All right, Jason, we'll take us back. Start with the MTC, and we'll just go through companions, areas, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I left for Manchester, where the MTC was, or there in Preston, Chorley, or I think the Chorley is the actual name of it, of the town that it's in.
Somewhere in there, we don't.
Somewhere in that area, yeah.
Most of us showed up and said, "I don't care, just take me where I'm supposed to go," because I don't think I even looked at a map. So
yeah, I very specifically remember we got off the plane and one of the staff members there at the MTC picked us up in a big white van, and the first thing that some of the American elders were doing was trying to calculate the difference of what gas prices in England were compared to the United States. It was just kind of funny how that was the first thing everybody seemed to do. We passed a gas or petrol station, I guess, and they were just trying to figure out how much, because gas had been fluctuating so much back in the States at that point. That was right before the financial crash that happened.
Very true.
So one of the very specific things that I remember about the MTC is the amount of times we got to go to the temple, which is right there on the ground. I had taken out my endowments probably just a couple of months before I had served and left. And so being able to go back to the temple and go through that ceremony, I believe it was 3 different times, once a week, there was something that was really, really special to me, because I was able to then learn more about it and understand, obviously not the whole thing, but be able to learn new things each and every time that I went. But in the MTC, I served with a missionary. His name was Elder Connor Bills. It was great. I remember teaching the teachers and having them record us teaching and then giving us feedback on what we could have done better. And there's always things we could do better on. But it was great, just the spirit that you could feel there in the MTC. And we had there was a lot of elders that were there in the MTC. There was like 60 plus, I think, which was the largest group they had in a while.
Wow, that is a big group. Yeah.
So after 3 weeks, then we went up to the mission home up there in Edinburgh, and I was able to met with President Frederick at the time. And I remember, I've heard people talk about it on the podcast prior, where I remember standing in the upstairs room there in the mission home, and we were all kind of standing in a line, and the assistants kind of come in and were just kind of like criticizing everything that you were doing. Maybe not like you didn't have product in your hair, or straighten your tie up, and it was
that's crazy.
We've heard it. I still can't imagine it.
It was, and it's not like, I wouldn't say it was like completely. I think they were having a little bit of fun with it, and they were smiling the whole time. You still could tell that they still loved you and everything. But I mean, we're young 20-year-old kids still trying to do this stuff, and they're just trying to teach us kind of how to be missionaries and what the culture of the mission was at that point. So we had stayed the night there, and the next day we climbed the hill there in Edinburgh. There was a big group of us that went up to Scotland. I think there was 12 of us who went from the up there.
Good old Pratt's Hill.
Yep.
Arthur's Seat.
Yeah, great little climb. I really liked doing that, going up there at the beginning and then again at the end of the mission was kind of special. Obviously, that's where Elder Pratt had gone up there to dedicate the land to be opened up for missionary work. So it's kind of special to be able to do that.
Yes, indeed.
So while they're in the mission home, I met my first companion, or my trainer. His name was Elder James Isaac Bird, went by Elder Bird. And he was great. I really liked Elder Bird. I served with him for about 3 months. And we kind of we struggled initially. Like, we didn't really have many people teaching. We were teaching. We were teaching one that was kind of off and on, but she at that point was living with her boyfriend, which was a really difficult concern, or really difficult objection to overcome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, indeed. My gosh.
What area were you in, Jason?
Oh yeah, I was in Kilmarnock, so over there on the west side.
Kilmarnock.
Yeah,
Very fun.
so our particular area, I was actually grateful. Ours, because there was 2 sets of missionaries there in Kilmarnock. There's 2 sets of elders. My companionship happened to have a car, so we had like the northern half of Kilmarnock and then all of the surrounding kind of towns, because we could drive out to there, whereas the other sets of elders really had the southern part of
Yeah.
of Kilmarnock, because of that particular reason. I mean, they had the bus that could get to some places, but not quite all.
Was it a 4-man flat then?
No, it actually wasn't. There was 2 separate flats. But we were close enough that we were in the same district. We saw each other at least 2 or 3 times a week, if not more, either just doing exchanges or going to church or going to different members' homes, that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's cool.
So with Elder Bird, there's a really cool story that we had. And I'll tell the first half right now, because the first half happened with Elder Bird. We were walking down the street one day, and Elder Bird had to use the bathroom.
Oh no.
And we hadn't taken our car at this point. We were just walking. And so we ended up just starting knocking or chapping on doors. And first door, walked up, nobody answered the door. Second door, we walked up, and an elderly lady answered the door. And we're like, we're not trying to preach to you right now. Just my companion, he's got to use the bathroom. Can you come in and use your bathroom? And she's like, of course. So he went upstairs to use her bathroom, and this lady, she was in her 80s. And I saw her put her glasses on and look right at my name badge. And she was like, hold on just a second. And she walks into the back room and comes out with the Book of Mormon somebody had given her like 20 years prior.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, I know that church. And we're like, I mean, I'm not trying to preach to you. I wasn't trying to when we first knocked on the door, but I asked him, like, do you want us to come back and start teaching? And she's like, yeah, of course. So we ended up scheduling an appointment with her. And she turns out that she had family in Dundee who was members of the church. She had thought she had been baptized many years prior, but didn't know if she had. So we ended up contacting the missionaries over there, or like the members and stuff over there. Turns out she had never been baptized. And so we ended up teaching her, and actually were able to baptize her. Baptized her with my second companion, who was next. I started with Elder Lewis, Elder Christopher Lewis, who I know you've had on the podcast before.
Yeah, cool.
Give me just a second here. I've got a picture of her, of that. Her name was Elizabeth Lawrence. Was her name?
I have to say, though, that is easily the most unique way of getting in somebody's door. And then you used the benefit of the fact that she couldn't see your name badge initially, that she had to see it first and then recognize it. That's actually a pretty good one. That we've heard people try and use the I have to use the toilet door approach several times, but to no avail. So that's a good different result, which is awesome.
Good outcome. That's great.
Yeah, and like I said, we knocked on her door not with the intention of actually trying to talk to her about the church. It was, we literally just had to use the bathroom.
Oh my gosh, so cool.
I'm not sure if you're able to see this picture or not.
We see it. It looks great.
But yeah, so this is Elder Lewis, and this is Elizabeth. I haven't this was 15 years ago, so I doubt that she's still with us. But I did hear later on in my mission, because this was my first area, I did hear later on in my mission that she had prepared and gone to the temple, which was really, really cool.
Man, that's incredible.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Love it.
I mean, I've always told the story of like by small and simple things, great things can come to pass. Because I mean, just by the fact that my companion had to use the bathroom, we were able to find Miss Elizabeth here. So
Yeah.
I say that, and the kindness in her heart to be willing to say, I don't know you two strange boys walking into my house, but by all means come in and use the toilet, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
She didn't have to let you guys in, but she must have felt something that prompted her to do so. So that's incredible.
Yeah, it's an absolutely incredible story. I mean, I will say this is probably, I was the most scared of this baptism, mostly because she's 80 years old. I remember holding her and just how frail it was to lower her down into the water and then back out. But it was a really, really great experience.
That's amazing. I love it.
That's really cool.
So how long were you with Chris?
So I was with Chris just for, well, one transfer, one move. So it was 5 weeks because I ended up getting emergency transferred a week before transfers. I know that he mentioned this on his podcast. And so he had said, you're going to have to ask Elder Hensley what actually happened because he didn't remember. I remember very vividly what happened.
Well, help us learn, Jason.
Absolutely. So there was a young lady that the other elders had baptized, who took a fancy to me. And she was probably calling us multiple times a day.
Oh my.
Just to kind of like, to see if we needed help with anything. But so I think, I can't even remember what her name was. I think it was Stephanie, but I don't remember. But this had gotten back to, we had kind of talked about it to President Frederick. And we got a call probably a week before transfers, or a week before the call, or before Moose call. And he goes, Elder Hensley, I know the situation that you got with her. And there's another elder who is having roughly kind of the same issue a little bit up north. I was going to transfer you anyways in a week. I'm just going to do it now, just to make sure.
Play it safe.
Okay.
So we're just going to play it safe, and we'll just send you up there now. Ended up moving up to Renfrew was the name of the area, but it's a little kind of small suburb of Paisley, which is a larger suburb of Glasgow. So it wasn't too far. But I wanted to kind of go back a little bit with my time with, because I was with Elder Bird for 3 months. I wanted to talk a little bit more about my experience with Elder Lewis. Elder Lewis was fantastic. Elder Lewis had only been out for 3 months, and I was with Elder Bird for 4.5 months. Excuse me.
Okay.
So I had only been with Elder Bird for 4.5 months, and Elder Lewis had been out for 3 months. So we were a relatively young companionship. But we had we had a lot of success. I think we ended up baptizing like 4 or 5 people that transfer,
Wow.
which
amazing.
was incredible. Kind of that transfer right there is the one that dispelled the myth of, oh, it's going to be a hard mission. I was like, when that transfer happened, I was like, yeah, that's not true. It's absolutely not. Not necessarily that you can't force people to be baptized, but the harder you pray and the harder you work, good things come to pass.
That's amazing.
I think you guys may have seen this picture from Elder Lewis, but I'll share it as well.
We love repeat pictures.
This was just one of those fun things you get as we do as a missionary. So hold on. This first one is a picture of the group of us on the top of Pratt's Hill. So this was one of the fun kind of things that Elder Lewis and I did. It snowed quite a bit. So we ended up building a rather large snowman.
Yeah, it's huge.
That we ended up tackling a couple of times just because I played football. I really enjoyed it. And Elder Lewis, who was an Englishman, was like, I don't really know much about American football. How do you tackle? And so we ended up tackling a snowman.
There you go.
And that was our group that came out on the top of Pratt's Hill there. So
It's a good looking group. Can you still name them all?
I think so. Forgive me, elders, if I forget your name. Elder Ream, Elder Salidos, Elder Hawkins, Elder McQuarrie, Elder Brophy, Elder Carlton, myself, Elder Elder Shenton, Elder Warby, Elder Cho and Elder Chen, and then Elder Hammond.
Man, you just rattled those off. Well done.
That was very good.
So yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, there's 12 of us that came up from in our group.
I love it.
And then
I've heard quite a few of their names. It's really cool.
Yeah, I remember I listened to Elder Carlton on the podcast.
That's right.
Everybody that I actually listened to, I was actually kind of grateful for your podcast, because every time I would listen to theirs, and then I actually reached out to them. I think just via Facebook, and just thanked them for their words, and was able to have a good conversation with most of them. So
we'd love to hear that.
Yeah,
that's great.
So that's just a heads up. If anybody wants to reach out, I'm more than happy to talk. So
love that. Love it.
All right. So yeah, like I said, Elder Lewis and I had some pretty good success there in Kilmarnock. The emergency transfer happened a little bit of an inconvenient time, because I think we moved on like a Tuesday or Monday. I don't remember exactly, but we had a baptism scheduled for that Friday. So unfortunately I wasn't able to attend that baptism because I got immediately transferred. So
man, that's rough.
It was, but I mean, we had quite a bit of success before that. So there's plenty other baptisms I was able to attend. So that was cool.
Yeah, you shared the wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. But I remember President Frederick had just been like, yeah, we just need you to pack, and then tomorrow, the next day, we're going to have you drive up because you have a car, or you guys are kind of meet halfway. I think it was halfway. And then you'll exchange with Elder Grantham, Elder Wayland Grantham, and you two will just kind of switch, and you'll do your transfer a week early. And I was like, all right, that's fine. So immediately went home and packed up and got ready to go and left the next day. So then I moved up to Renfrew, as I had mentioned, up near Paisley, and that went and served with Elder Carlton. He's been on the podcast as well, and that was kind of it was a little harder. Not that Elder Carlton's great, but the area was a little bit harder.
Tell us why, Jason. Your first taste of Glasgow. Come on.
I would say that's probably for the first taste of kind of being in Glasgow.
Oh man.
So I still loved it. I love the people. By that time I could actually understand them, which was nice. Even moving then to Glasgow, I remember it took me probably about 3 or 4 weeks to understand them in person, and another month before I could understand them on the phone.
So true.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
But when I got to Glasgow, their accent was a little bit thicker, but I was able to. I could understand them pretty well at that point. After serving with Elder Carlton for 6 weeks, well, 7 weeks because the week longer than the extra transfer. Don't remember a lot. I remember just walking around a lot in Renfrew. And then
what ward were you in? Was it the Julian Avenue?
Yeah, I think Julian Avenue was in Glasgow. We were in the Paisley ward.
Oh, you were in Paisley. Okay.
Yeah, there was a Paisley ward there.
Okay.
Just opening up the pictures here, see if it jogs. I'd done it earlier, but see if it jogs my memory at all. Yeah. I don't remember much about that particular area. But then
7 weeks after almost 6 months in your Greenie area. I mean, that's a blip in the radar in the scope of a mission sometimes.
It really was. It really was. I mean, I was there for a total of 3 months and a week. But it was a very, very small kind of blip. I served with 2 companions there, Elder Carlton and then Elder David Kane, who I know you've had on as well.
Yeah.
And they were great. I remember Elder Kane, another kind of repeat story. I remember we came home one day. We're probably maybe a couple weeks prior to the transfer, the transfer call. And we came home to our apartment or our flat having a to let sign in the window. And
Oh
so,
my gosh, that's right. Jeez.
I'll pull it up here and see it.
I still can't believe that the mission home would do that. It's like, just in case you were wondering, you don't live here anymore.
So at this point, we knew we were either we were moving areas or moving flats. But
oh my god,
that's not subtle at all.
So it wasn't subtle, absolutely at all. Yeah. So it was just to let. We were like, okay, obviously something's happening. Turned out that we got the moose call and they ended up closing that area. And so I moved up north to Aberdeen, which was really cool. I really liked Aberdeen.
Before we get to Aberdeen, though, that means that the mission office said to the landlord or the owner of the property, sure, just go into the flat, do whatever you need to market the fact that it's for sale.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they never called you, right?
No, we did not. We didn't. We only got the call that we were leaving on Moose Call Day, so like a week or two later. But we got
that boggles my mind. I'm sorry. That's far beyond like the courtesy. Give me a break, mission office. Come on, at least a phone call. Hey, don't be shocked, but would have been nice. My goodness.
I completely agree. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that if he gave that responsibility to the assistants and the assistants just didn't do it. I mean, I don't know, but I remember we walked up to our apartment one day and we saw this in the window and we're just like, okay, that's what's happening. So
I guess we're packing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly what we did kind of that day was we're like, oh, we know we're packing, so we'll go ahead and start doing that.
Wow. What an experience.
Yeah.
So Aberdeen, were you in the Aberdeen ward or the Bridgetton ward?
We're in the Aberdeen ward. So I served with Elder Antonio Sauter. He was originally from Romania.
That's right.
And I will say Elder Sauter was probably, I think we all have that companion. He was the one I didn't really get along with all that well. Elder Sauter, I love you now. I'm grateful for the time that we served, but we didn't get along well at that point. Taught me a lot. It was one of those stories where like you're writing to president every week and you're saying, yeah, we're not really getting along. I can't remember if I specifically asked for a transfer or not. But I mean, you're definitely kind of praying for that sometimes. And one of those stories where you get the move call and you're staying together for another 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So, Elder Sauter, if you listen to it, I do love you. Grateful for the time we served together. Taught me a lot. But
I have to ask you, Jason, what flat did you live in Aberdeen?
I got a picture of it. I do not remember the address. That's the one address I can't really remember that well.
Was it the Charlotte Street?
I don't
with
think
the cobblestone road.
It was a really, really small apartment. Like it was really small.
Maybe they scrapped that flat a long time before I'm thinking. It was such a good mission flat though.
Yeah, the one that we had, it was on the 3rd floor.
Yeah, not Charlotte Street.
Yeah, it was on the 3rd floor. I think it was the 3rd floor. But the kitchen was literally probably like 5 feet by 10 feet. It was so small.
Oh my gosh.
We had a bedroom and a living room, a really tiny kitchen. And Elder Sauter decided, we found on the side of the road like a weight set bench, like one of those kind of like that said free on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the zone leaders had a car at that point. So he was like, hey, he called them up, hey, can you come get this for me? And so they ended up grabbing the weight bench set and bringing it into the apartment so he could work out and start lifting.
And you put it in the kitchen?
I wouldn't fit in the kitchen because the kitchen had enough room. Had enough room for you to walk in, and that was about it. Because on one side was like all like, kind of like the appliances, and on the other side was like a counter, and there was not a lot of room in there.
I was just joking.
Yeah.
But as we've discovered, all of us walking through mission flat to mission flat, there's all sorts of flat finds that you have, whether it's old missionaries workout equipment or golf clubs or football cleats or anything in between, you know.
Absolutely. It's kind of like a if you find it, you can have it if you want it, and sometimes you question where it came from, but it's there. So that's how if it's served in that flat and served after me with that weight bench, that's where it came from. So
it's pretty funny.
Aberdeen was really cool. I really liked the way that the city looked because they call it the Silver City, kind of built out of granite and right there on the beach. Wouldn't go swimming in that water. It's very cold.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. I mean, I live in the Pacific Northwest, and that water, sometimes I won't go in in Pacific Northwest water without a wetsuit on. Super cold.
Yeah.
But northern Scotland, I'd stick my feet in, but that's about it. So, but Aberdeen was absolutely gorgeous. There was a lot of castles. The zone leaders at the time really enjoyed on preparation day just going out and finding a different castle, some around Aberdeen. And so there was a lot of really cool places. Aberdeen reminded me a lot of my hometown here in the Washington, up in the Puget Sound, just the water and everything else. And so it was reminded me a lot of home, and it was fantastic just be able to see some of those sites and some of the really cool places in Scotland.
Yes, it's awesome. What part of the Aberdeen area did you cover? Was it more the southern part?
Yeah, it was more the southern part. We didn't have a car at that point. So it was Elder Sauter and I just on the bus. More of the southern part. The zone leaders had their car, and then there was the Bridge of Dawn ward. Elders had their area as well, north of the bridge. And the zone leaders kind of covered everything outside. But the zone leaders were in the area, but they also covered Inverness, which was a ways away. They didn't cover Inverness. They were the zone leaders for the Inverness ward as well, and so they would go out there often to meet with those elders.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah, the furthest north I ever got is I went on exchanges with the zone leaders, and Elder Rose took me to Elgin, which is like halfway between Inverness and Aberdeen. So
nice little vacation.
It was kind of nice. I mean, I liked it.
Elgin is a nice
I will
place.
credit that one, like that kind of. I think that was exchange, probably a direct result of the letters that Elder Sauter and I were sending to the president. I think that's probably why that exchange happened.
There you go.
But it definitely helped. So that was also the time the only time I got to serve or got to go to the military tattoo down in Edinburgh. Every year the mission had paid for all the missionaries to go to the tattoo. And because of the time frame of when I had served, I only got to go to one of those, whereas most elders were able to go to two. Just
right.
because
they scrapped it, right? Because of the merger of the missions.
So I don't know if that's when they scrapped it. I think they still went that year. But
so you just missed it?
Yeah, I didn't. So I think it was in August that they went. And so I missed it getting there. And then I went when I was a year in. And then it would have been about the time that I went home or shortly thereafter that I would have been able to go the second time.
Okay,
so
that makes more sense to me now.
Yeah.
Just bad timing.
It was just bad timing. But I mean, I was glad to be able to go home. I mean, not that I didn't love being a missionary, but 2 years is quite a bit, and
Yeah.
I was grateful I'd had my chance to serve.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was trying to piece it together, but you're right. Like, I had that experience in my mission because I started the 5th of January and I missed my first burn supper was like a week before I came out.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Oh, we just had the best burn supper." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I had to wait a whole year to experience it while everybody's telling me about eating haggis and neeps and tatties and all the other fine things that you get on a burn supper night. And so you had the same experience with that I did, except with the tattoo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was all right. I enjoyed the tattoo that I went to, and it was great. So
That's good. Love it.
just looking to have my copy of Preach My Gospel that I had as a missionary, that I listed all my companions and all the people that ended up getting baptized while I was there.
It's a pretty frequent reference material for our podcast, for sure.
I bet it is. It's like you write it all down, and then, like, rather than having to go back through and read every single page of my mission journal, that I did really well my first year and then not so great the second year.
That's a common tale as well.
Yeah. I think it probably, I don't know, the phrase that a lot of people use was that your mission lasts a year and a day, where the first year feels like a year, but that second year kind of really feels like a day. I definitely felt that experience. And so I don't know if that was a direct result of why I didn't keep my journal as well as I should have that second year, just because it was going by so fast.
Yeah. It can become a blur pretty quickly when you're having so many amazing experiences.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to record them all too. So
it's true.
So then after 3 months in Aberdeen, so 2 transfers or 2 moves with Elder Sauter, they moved me down to Stirling in the Edinburgh zone. That was the one and only time that I served in the Edinburgh zone. And I served initially with Elder David Larson. And I think with Elder Larson, the most interesting experience, I think, was during that time. It was Halloween, and Stirling's a big college town. There's kind of two experiences I strictly remember about Stirling. Halloween, we decided not to go out that night because we noticed that there were so many people that had been drinking on that night that we're like, I don't feel very safe walking around the streets of Stirling at this point.
Yeah, you made the right choice.
So we ended up just going back to the flat, and we're kind of just doing some study and trying to make some phone calls and make some appointments, whatever. But I also remember one night we had kind of a rough night, and we got off the bus, and I'm like, you know what, I want to talk to somebody just because I want to end on a good note. And this guy, I don't remember his name, but I started talking to him, and you could obviously tell he'd just come from the pub. He was just steaming drunk. And so because we had a bad day, I was like, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with him. So I don't know how we got on the subject, but we started talking about aliens.
Oh my word.
Somehow he got super convinced that there was an alien invasion happening right then and there. And he turned around.
He ran?
He literally turned and ran. I have no idea where it went. To this day, I don't know what happened to him. It was just, I was like, okay, just for the entertainment value, that made my day. Like, that really made my day. We had a rough day, but
he must have seen something behind your head or something, shooting star, and he was like, I'm out of here.
I don't know. I learned that sometimes talking to drunk people can be productive, but it can also be very fun. So
can provide some levity for your day. That's for sure.
Exactly.
That's right. Oh my word.
So after one move with Elder Larson, we got a call that we were going to be co-training in the next transfer. And so we went to the mission home on the first day and picked up Elder Daniel Jones. And we were in that threesome for about a week or two. when at this point it was President Griffiths. We had changed over to the new mission president, and President Griffiths called us and he said, "Elder Hensley, I need you to go to Motherwell tomorrow."
What?
So the second time in my mission experience, I got emergency transferred, emergency moved. This one, and to this day, I still don't know the whole story. I've heard bits and pieces, some sort of medical emergency, I think. I don't remember if it was a medical emergency or if it was a missionary that just, a greenie who just decided he didn't want to be there anymore. But President Griffiths called and said, you're in a threesome. So Elder Hensley, I'm just going to move you down to Motherwell, back to the Glasgow zone. And you're going to go serve with Elder McKay Livingston.
Okay.
Wait, so you trained for a week?
I trained for a week.
That is unique to our conversation. No one has said I trained for a week and it was over. That was it. That's all I got.
I couldn't tell if I was just a bad trainer or I think it was just because we were in a threesome. So, but
yeah, you just drew the short straw on that one.
I think so,
Jason.
I think so. Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, it was great. I really liked Elder Jones. I don't know if you've had Elder Jones on the podcast before.
No, not yet. But we're working on it.
Obviously, for a week, but he was great.
Does he consider you his mission stepfather of some sort, or?
I don't remember exactly what we landed on. I might be seeing. I'm actually going to Salt Lake for conference here in a week or so. So I don't know if I'm going to be seeing him down there or not. I've been in contact with some of the others, but I don't know if I'm a stepfather or if I'm just a estranged father. I don't know. But it was just a week. So
1 week of living and you were out of there.
It was just obviously that was weird because it was the second time in my mission that I've been emergency transferred, and not many people get emergency transferred twice. I mean, once, let alone twice. So
yeah, that is unique. Oh my gosh.
So went and served with Elder Livingston in the Motherwell ward. I really liked the Motherwell ward. They were probably that was a very close number one, number two of my favorite wards that I served in. They were very, very missionary oriented. Didn't really baptize too many people there, but we had a lot of appointments with the members. And they were really trying their best. When we could tell, Livingston and I could tell that they were trying. But I had a car again in Motherwell. One of the things I'm kind of most proud of is the 2 winters that we were there, which were pretty snowy and pretty cold. I had a car both winters, and I was really happy about that.
Oh man, it's a game changer. I can attest. It is a game changer.
So that second time, the first time we had a car, I was able to drive for a lot of that because my U.S. license was good for a year while I was over there. I think that's the way that the law worked before I had to get a U.K. license. And while I was in Aberdeen, I had attempted to get that license. I went and I sat for the written exam, passed that, and tried to take the practical exam twice. So the mission paid for one, and I paid for one. The first time, the zone leaders came to pick me up because they're the ones who had the car. So they came to pick me up for me to go drive in it. And turns out one of the headlights was out. So they wouldn't let me drive because one of the lights was out.
Sabotage.
Gosh.
Yeah, and we even went to the store, we went to the auto parts store to see if we could get change the headlight, and it didn't work out for whatever reason. I don't know if we got there late or just because the light was out, I wasn't able to take it. So then I rescheduled it, paid for it myself. And the second time, no offense to the mission, but I found out the night before I was going to go take this test that I wasn't going to have a car to drive. They were going to take the car and do something else with it.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
So at this point, I was like, you know what? I think God's trying to tell me something. Maybe I'm just not supposed to drive here anymore. So I decided not to get my license over there again. And didn't want to pay another 60 pounds or whatever it was, which I mean, at that point, at that point, the pound was like $2 or 2 pounds to $1 or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like twice as much in US dollars. So it would have been like $120 again for me to try and reschedule this test. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. Only got so much resources. So
Yeah, I don't blame you at that point in time, man.
But I had some really, really cool experiences in Motherwell. Like, I think the coolest one that I had, it didn't involve a baptism. It actually involved a member and gave me a really strong testimony of blessings. Because we were at a member's home, and their daughter was just, I think their daughter was probably 4 or 5 at the time, maybe somewhere around there. And you could tell she was just sick. You know how kids that young are sick? They're just really clingy, holding on to their mom or holding on to their parents. She was just obviously just was not feeling well. And so they asked, like, elders, can you give her a blessing? So we ended up giving her a blessing. And almost immediately she reached for a cookie on the table because there was cookies there, and she was immediately feeling better. And it's just something that,
Wow.
like, I saw this happen. I don't know it. I can't explain it, but it's one of those experiences for me that just gave me a testimony of blessings and how God works, and that we can work miracles through Him. So,
Love that.
but like I said, I made a lot of good friendships in Motherwell. Was able to baptize a couple people. Another really cool story. We went on exchanges one time, and I was exchanged out of the area, and Elder Slade, I believe, Evan Slade, who you've talked to, was the district leader at the time, was serving with Elder Livingston at that time. And he got off the bus and started talking with somebody there in Motherwell. And this guy was absolutely fantastic. Like, so they talked, and he's like, yeah, come on over. And the first time then that I think it was Elder Livingston and myself went over there, he was like, I've read a lot of the Book of Mormon that Elder Slade had given me, and I just know it's true. He's like, I just know. And so very, very quickly he was taught and baptized.
Crazy.
Yeah. Then after 6 weeks with Elder Livingston, I got a new companion. I got a chance to train. So I got to redeem myself on the training sense. And I got to serve with Elder Shindulek. Elder, I completely forgot how to pronounce your first name, but I'm going to try this. Elder Vaclav Shindulek is from the Czech Republic. And Elder Shindulek he was amazing. Like, I think a lot of trainers will say that about their trainees. But he had an extremely strong testimony of Jesus through his kind of background. And for him to be able to share, for me to be able to learn from him, it strengthened my testimony a lot as well. Just how good of a person he was, and how much he really cared about the people that we were serving. He had his license, so because we had a car, I walk in the mission home with the keys, and I was like, "Hey, Elder, here you go." Threw him the keys, and I'm like, "You're going to be driving." Like, I can't drive.
Wow.
So that was his introduction to the mission. Is, yeah, I'm going to be driving. So, but he was fantastic. And then after 6 weeks of that, I went to Dumbarton and served with Elder Matthew Hardwick, another Englishman. And that was probably for me the hardest area overall. Not Elder Hardwick and I got along really, really well, but just the people there. I don't think we taught a handful of lessons at all that entire 6 weeks that I was with Elder Hardwick. I don't know if the Lord was just testing us in that particular area. I just don't, maybe we weren't good enough. I don't know. I don't know what happened. But we just didn't, it was just a hard area. We did a lot of walking in the rain. I have very specific pictures of my pants just being absolutely drenched coming home to our flat one day. Just because it was literally just storming one night. We were walking around, and it was because we didn't have a car at this point. Rains a lot in Scotland, so
we've all been there.
That's for sure. But yeah, so Dumbarton, I mean, we did a lot. We were teaching a lot of like converts who had just been recently converted or recently baptized. So we were kind of helping with some of the new member lessons, but it was just a struggle for us trying to find other people to teach there in Dumbarton. So that was another blip of.
Get asked. Could you try again?
Sorry, Siri. I don't know what Siri wanted. So then after 6 weeks with Elder Hardwick, both of us ended up transferring out of there. So we ended up whitewashing out of that area. And I went to my final area, which was in Greenock. And Greenock I really liked Greenock a lot. That was probably, I said Motherwell and Greenock were my number 1, number 2, and both could take the place of number 1 and number 2. Greenock reminded me more of Washington, where I'm from, than Aberdeen did, just because it's right there on the mouth of the Clyde. There's a great big ferry system there. The ward mission leader was across the ferry. We'd take a ferry ride every single week to get to his house, where we would have just like our ward or mission council meeting with him, and him and his wife would feed us. But that reminded me a lot of Washington, and it was good to be able to, not that I was homesick or anything, but just a good reminder of home and just how much I love the water. So
The word is trunky.
I was not trying. Well, okay, hold on. Maybe a little.
I'm just pulling your leg a little. I mean, it would be hard though to be in a place that's very similar to home. To not be thinking about that.
And when I went there, I only had 4.5 months left. Yeah, that sounds right. And I went to serve with Elder Jamie West. He had come out in the group before me. So at the beginning of my mission, I'd served with we had served as a really young companionship. Elder West and I were a really old companionship. Like he was going home 6 weeks before I was.
Yeah.
And trying to find, there was a specific time he got his going home packet. And then about 5 weeks later, I got mine. So we have a picture of both of us holding up what they call your trunky papers. Right there, both of us holding up our trunky papers with that. And with Elder West and I, we taught probably the investigator who brought me the second most kind of joy and happiness. Teaching a guy named Stephen. He had some mental health challenges, some drug problems in the past, but he was able to overcome all of that and was able to be baptized. And I'm actually there's a couple people from my mission that I'm still in contact with, but he's probably the one I talk to most frequently. I probably talk to him every couple of months, but he still goes to church and is really just loves the gospel. So
it's amazing.
Fantastic.
And I will say I probably rarely saw Stephen smile, just because he had had such a hard life, and he's not really smiling too much in this picture. But this is Stephen, and he's fantastic. So
That's cool.
yeah. What else I got? Yeah, here's a picture of both Elder West and I's trunky papers that we both had. But I remember teaching Stephen, I remember kind of teaching him some of the lessons. And one thing I appreciated about Elder West is he was a really, really good teacher. He could explain the gospel relatively, really simply. And I think we made a good companionship in that regard, just being able to teach really, really well. And then, so I ended up killing off Elder West, as they say in the mission. So he went home, and I had 6 weeks left. And at this point is when they decided to, when the church had combined the Scotland Edinburgh mission and the Scotland Ireland mission into the Scotland Ireland mission. And my experience with that was absolutely fantastic. I thought it was a great way to do it. So what President Griffiths decided to do, because President Griffiths was the mission president who was going to remain the mission president over both the entire mission. And so and you have two missions that you're trying to combine. Two with very different cultures, like very, very different cultures. And so what it felt like President Griffiths did is that he took as many missionaries from Ireland and as many missionaries from Scotland and just said, poof, and just like half and half. So I ended up serving in Greenock my last 6 weeks with Elder Stephen Beecham, coincidentally enough, also from Washington State, from where I'm from.
Oh, wow.
He grew up north of Seattle. I grew up south of Seattle. But he had served in Ireland, and it was really, really interesting to talk to him about how the Ireland missionaries had done missionary work. In Scotland, we focused almost strictly on member work. So we would schedule our days in such a way that, okay, we're going to go see this member. If they're not home, maybe we'll knock on like 4 or 5 doors on either side, but then we'll kind of go and see this less active member or that sort of thing. And then to and from those appointments is when we just street contact. We talk to people on the bus. We talk to people on the street just walking by. I felt that we found a lot of people that way, but then also always asking people for, hey, who do you know that we can teach? Like, who do you know that would be interested in this message? I mean, you're not, but who do you know that could be? Whereas Ireland had strictly been a tracting mission. So
wow,
they were knocking doors, 8-9 hours a day or something like that. I don't know how long it was, but it was with Elder Beecham.
Too long.
But it was with Elder Beecham that I actually spent the longest time knocking doors, because we're like, okay, let's just combine our ways of doing missionary work. So I think the longest we ever did, I think we did 2 hours one day. And
you'd never done that before.
I had done like 4 or 5 doors on either side of doors. I may have done 20 minutes or like 30 minutes, but I'd never done like a strict, okay, we're going to go just do all this entire street. And we ended up doing that. I was like, that's nothing I'd ever done. It was a good experience. I mean, I think I've heard you guys talk about how that's what you guys did.
Yeah.
Until we had bloody fingers or they were frozen, or I'll never forget. I had one instance where I was knocking doors and we talked to someone on the doorstep for maybe 20 minutes, and it's like freezing rain out. Mm-hmm. By the time I talked with my hands, as you can see, and by the time it was done, I said to my companion, I can't feel my hands. Let's go home. It was that bad. Like, but I didn't know how to talk with my hands in my pockets. It felt rude to me. Mm-hmm. And so I just let my hands literally freeze in the rain. So yeah, what an experience. Crazy.
Yeah. So I didn't do that experience of just knocking doors till my fingers bled. Oh
my goodness.
In other ways, I'm kind of grateful for that. I mean,
yeah,
you did it the better way. Like we just, did what we were told. And then mm-hmm. somebody finally said, this ain't working. We should do something different. And that's how you guys got to do what you did, which worked way better than what we did from what we've heard. So kudos.
Yeah, I felt that it worked. I felt it worked really, really well. Got to talk to a lot of people, and and we worked a lot through the members. We used Elder Bednar's Ask in Faith talk quite a bit because it was almost strictly about missionary work. And so we would help members kind of through their process of how to talk to their friends, and it worked.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
very cool.
I'm trying to see if there's kind of any other major stories that I wanted to share, but
yeah, well, do you remember? Sorry to cut you off, Jack, but I was going to ask: do you remember Stephen Beecham finding a shock factor to coming into Greenock, having been in Ireland?
Yes, I remember. So that was probably the tracting versus the Scotland not tracting was probably one of the biggest culture changes that he was like, what the heck? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
He struggled a little bit with the accent when he first got to Scotland. I mean, some of Ireland has some pretty thick accents as well, but I remember him struggling a little bit initially. Didn't take him as long to, like, maybe only a week or so to figure it out. But we were in Greenock, so it wasn't as thick as some of that Glaswegian that was right there on the west coast.
Right.
Most people you talk to are relatively nice enough to posh up their language, make it so you can understand them for a little bit. But I really liked the Greenock branch because it was a branch at that point. I think when Elder West and I kind of started there wasn't. They had just recently called a new branch president, President Black, who didn't live in that area. He lived further south, but they called him to be the president of this branch. I think when he started, there was probably only 10 to 20 members attending. By the time I left, after 4.5 months or so, I think my last Sunday we had like 40 or 50 people there, just from either reactivating people or visiting friends or people moving into the branch. But I really enjoyed that branch just because of how hard President Black worked at doing that. That was also my kind of first introduction to how hard a branch presidency or bishopric works, because when I got there, Elder West was serving as a second counselor in the branch presidency. So after church every Sunday, we would count tithing as missionary companionship and take it down to the bank. And so some of the responsibilities that they have, we were able to do some of that as well.
Yeah, we've heard some stories about the Greenock branch and how involved missionaries truly were there, which not a lot of us had that opportunity to be as involved. But like you said, lack of leadership and that need for the missionaries to be involved there was a big deal. So that's pretty cool.
I think by the end of it, like when I had left, I think they had called somebody, I can't remember, but I think they had called somebody else rather than missionaries to be in the leadership, which was kind of nice.
Yeah.
But us being there, I mean, obviously we're there to help, we're there to serve in whatever capacity we're needed. But I guess kind of my first impression of seeing kind of like what all a bishop or a branch presidency does, like what all they do to keep a ward running.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I wanted to mention that the difference between mission presidents. So I had two mission presidents. I had President Frederick, and then I had President Griffiths. The difference between those two was truly what I needed at the time. President Frederick was very, very, very disciplined. Like very, I believe you guys have had him. You've talked to President and Sister Frederick on the podcast, but it felt very disciplined under him, and very very rigid, which I felt was needed for me at the point, because I, as a young kid, needed to kind of learn exactly what I was supposed to do. But then I felt that President Griffiths brought in more of okay, we need to kind of follow the Spirit. And so a lot of things got relaxed, sort of thing. I came in like after, I think other missionaries have talked about what they termed as hammer time. I wasn't really a part of that as much, but I heard remnants and stories of it.
Other than the inspection when you came in.
Other than that, yeah, exactly. That was kind of like my only.
That was the leftover part.
Exactly, it was like the leftover, the remnants. I mean, but under President Frederick, it felt more stricter rules. Like, if you're truly, like, you're going to listen to only Mormon Tabernacle Choir, not anything else. If you're going to listen to music, you're going to have product in your hair. You're not going to wear pink or purple ties. I do remember that.
Yeah.
But then under President Griffiths, it very much changed. And I remember his very first zone conference, he was like, somebody had asked about music, I think. And he was like, the only criteria that I have for music is, does it bring you do you feel the Spirit when you're listening to it? And so as long as you were feeling the Spirit, then it was fine. And so that was one thing I really appreciated about President Griffiths, is that the fact that he kind of encouraged and helped me to learn really how to follow the Spirit, how to really listen and understand what it is trying to tell us. And I really appreciate that about President Griffiths.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I think
that's what I was going to ask earlier. Do you have any specific experiences with your mission presidents or their wives that you'd like to share?
Not necessarily any specific ones. I remember my final interview with President Griffiths encouraging me to, like, when I left the mission, I thought I knew what I wanted to do, getting back home. But I reflected on that, like the month or so getting back home. I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. I wanted to go to law school. But ended up not doing that. I spoke to kind of several other lawyers and attorneys when I got back. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I don't know if I really want to do that, which is where that at the beginning, where kind of all my indecisiveness of what do I want to do with my life kind of came in, why it took me so long to finish my degree. But I remember talking to him, and he gave a lot of good advice, just making sure that he's like, have a plan when you get home, because a lot of missionaries will get home and not know what to do with themselves because they've been so structured for years. But he encouraged, just make sure you know what you're doing, have a plan, and then just listen to the Spirit, and it will never steer you wrong. So that was the biggest theme that I got from President Griffiths, was just follow the Spirit and learn to listen and recognize its counsel. It has definitely served me well over the years. So
that's quite good.
I think I will share one more thing. I think kind of overall theme of my mission is that it really did truly grow my testimony of the church. Some of the things that I saw as a missionary, I've had some life challenges over the last year that have kind of put me in I mean, everybody goes through what I guess faith crises or things like that, but where you kind of just are questioning a lot of different things. And the things that I experienced on our mission are honestly what kept me going to a church during this time. I couldn't deny what I had seen and what I had felt as a missionary. And during that time when I didn't know what was going on, like I didn't know what was going on in my life, I didn't know what was happening. Just you feel that kind of lost feeling that some of us that you kind of feel through those trials. That I would remember that, and I remember the experiences as a missionary, and I'm like, no, this is where I need to be. I may not feel like I need to be here right now, but I know I need to. And I can tell you what I knew. I remember distinctly 6 weeks into this trial, distinctly remembering that you knew this 6 weeks ago. What's changed? And so just because of my experience as a missionary, it kept me close to Christ, and I was able to re-experience just everything of why Christ lives for us, not just the redemption of sins, but also just his strength of him knowing how to help you through those hard times. And just my testimony has grown strengthly because of my missionary work. And I will say that in the name of Jesus Christ, amen, because that is absolutely just so powerful for me.
Amen to that. Yes.
I love that. And, I think that's important for everybody to hear. That's one reason why Zach and I love doing this, is we get to reflect, multiple times a week, come on here and revisit not just, what you experience, but it brings back for us what we experience too. So
yeah,
we really appreciate it. We appreciate you coming on, Jason.
Yeah.
And we love you as our brother in Scotland.
Yeah, love you too.
There's a whole network of people, even though, you didn't overlap with us at all, but talking about areas and places and people, it's a shared experience.
Yeah.
So
completely true. Is there any other missionaries besides your companions that you want to call out that we need to get on the podcast as we move forward here, Jason?
I was thinking about that. I think you guys have been trying to get me on for almost a year now. We finally made that work. But a year ago, I was thinking about that, and I think most of the elders that I kind of served around in that, you've had a lot of them on, and so I appreciate all of their testimonies, all of their experiences as well, because it helped to get me through this last year of my specific challenges that I've had. So,
that's so good. We love to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to hear. I'm just looking at my companions. I'd love to hear Elder Jones. I'd love to hear Elder Bird if you are ever to get in contact with Elder Bird, just my trainer.
Okay.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, those are good ones. Yeah, beyond the Chris Lewis, Tom Carlton, David Kane, I mean, we haven't talked to very many, if any of them. Not to say that we haven't attempted to get in touch with them.
Yeah.
As we continue, my suggestion to you, Jason, and I know that you're a good user of Facebook because of how we connected.
Yeah.
Share this and tag people, and you'll be surprised at the amount of people that will come through and be able to reconnect, and vice versa. You'll be able to reach out to them and touch their heart and remind them of something that may or may not be at the forefront of their mind, but will bring them a smile and joy. And that's what this is all about, is making sure that we realize that amongst the chaos of our lives, we still think back at the craziness of living in Scotland for 2 years or 18 months for the sisters, and oftentimes reflecting on, did we actually do that? And surviving in that rugged land as we know it to be. But I know that everybody that listens to this will reflect and say that they're grateful for that time that they spent there, irregardless of where they are with regards to faith and the gospel. It doesn't matter. I mean, Scotland is a part of us forever. There's like that little niche in your heart that that Scotland's got a hold of, and oh man, it's just a wonderful place. So we're so grateful that you're our brother, and we really appreciate your time tonight. This doesn't happen without you.
Of course, yeah, it's been a great time to be able to reflect as well. So I appreciate you guys.
Good deal.
Absolutely.
If you're listening to this, reach out to Jason and jump on YouTube. If you're just listening, he shared some pictures with us tonight. They're pretty cool. So I appreciate that too. Thanks,
and plug us, Jack.
Oh,
if
man.
People are trying to find us and they can't find a message from Zach Hewlett in their Facebook messengers or whatever. Tell them how to find us, Jack.
You're living under a rock if you can't find us. The mission.
You guys on Spotify.
Yeah, we're on every platform.
Yeah,
I mean, we're out there. But 51spylaw.com. If you go there, fill out a form, we'll reach out to you in that way as well. And you're welcome to email us also. It's S.E.M podcast at 51spylaw.com. So multiple ways to reach out to us. And we'd love that when that happens. So,
and if you just get on the Google machine and type in Scotland Edinburgh Mission, we're the first YouTube link on there. You'll find us. I mean, I guarantee that you'll come across us in some capacity. Just type it in. We love it. We're looking for more people to join us on this journey. I mean, we're approaching episode 200, if you can believe it, and had some amazing conversations, including yours tonight, Jason. So again, Thank you. We love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
All right, brother. We'll bid you a cheerio and we'll talk more soon. All right.
Yep.
Thanks, Jason. Bye.
Bye.